Welcome back to Good Morning Kenya. My name is Mike Megwe. We are glad that you are still watching KBC Channel 1. You're watching Good Morning Kenya. And now we shift gears and talk matters about shaping the future of Kenya's real estate and geospatial landscape, given that when you look at the real estate sector, the demand is exceeding over 200,000 housing units annually, yet supply is still a quarter of that, while mortgage penetration in the country still stands below 1% or at 1% of Kenya's GDP. And when you look at matters land is being transformed into a digital asset through geospatial systems and platforms. And now it has redefined how land is valued, taxed, and traded, which is why we want to look at how we can shape the futures of Kenya's real estate and geospatial landscape. I'm having that conversation with Eric Nyandimo, who is the President, Institution of Surveyors of Kenya. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
How are you doing?
Good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. Maybe you can start by giving us an overview of Kenya's geospatial and real estate landscape.
All right. Thank you very much. And thanks once again for inviting us to this program.
Karibu sana.
I'd like to inform you and the rest of the public that the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya is organizing its annual general meeting. And as part of the annual general meeting, we have our Kenya Geospatial and Real Estate Conference, which will be held from the 13th to the 14th of May at the Pride Inn Paradise Beach Resort and Spa in Mombasa. During this gathering, we expect to bring on board leaders, practitioners, policymakers, and developers as well as innovators to be able to discuss issues related to the geospatial and the real estate, looking at the current state and looking at what is there for the future, so that we can be able to prepare those who are coming into the profession as well as those who are currently in on how to harness some of the developments and be able to make practical applications that would support the public, and also to be able to mainstream certain policies that would help to make things very clear within the industry. Yes.
And also, you know, when you look at Kenya's real estate sector, it's often framed as a housing story. But beneath that, there's a shift towards geospatial data and land intelligence. So what is the real transformation that is happening in Kenya's land and property ecosystem right now?
The main thing that is happening currently is on the aspect of digitization. Where we are moving from the way the records have been held and moving them into a digital arena, so that it can be easier for people to be able to search, retrieve, be able to access information that they can be able to use in making decisions in terms of what they need to invest in, and so on and so forth. The other thing that we are seeing is the impacts of different rulings coming from the judiciary, especially on matters related to due diligence, that when you're buying property, you should not just be looking at the surface of it, but you should actually go to the root of the title, so that you can be able to ensure that whatever you are purchasing or investing in has a clean route, so that you don't end up into a problem, as we have seen with a number of investors or people who have bought property in the recent past. The other issue is also just like what you're talking about in terms of the housing front, and there is increased interest on that particular front, especially with regard to the aspect of affordable housing and the impact that it's creating on this particular sector. But it's also important to point out that these two items, in terms of geospatial real estate, they are closely related because the geospatial aspects, or if you will, surveying, is coming in terms of defining those properties and providing the requisite data for defining that property information. And then once that has been done, then it can be availed either for selling, letting, or leasing through the real estate aspects. Yes.
And when you look at land value, we are seeing infrastructure corridors like Thika Road redefining land value. Is it that land in Kenya has effectively become data-driven, a data-driven asset, more than just a physical one?
Land value is influenced by a number of factors. One of these factors is accessibility. So where you have a piece of land and it is easy to access it, then the value will potentially be higher compared to where you have land where it is difficult to access. So when you have planned infrastructure development or expansion, as we have seen in the recent past, maybe the expansion of Thika Road or even the construction of the standard gauge railway, those aspects tend to influence the value. So you'll find that because of that, then the value goes up, because there's a lot more interest in terms of people who are interested in getting those pieces of land. So it drives the value and it goes up. Yes.
And still on land economy, is it sometimes operated on a speculative aspect, or is it genuinely transitioning into a more structured, information-based property market?
So the land economy, of course, coming into the land valuation aspects, as we have said, it is influenced by a number of factors, and this is it is not really speculative, as you say. So if you talk to our members who practice this particular profession, there's a lot of research that they need to be able to undertake. There's a lot of comparison that they really need to undertake, and they do a lot of measurements and come up with reports which provide them with the requisite data that they then make use of to calculate the value. So it's not just a question of looking at a property and deciding that this is going to be this value. There's a lot that actually goes into it. Yes.
Include valuation of it.
Yes.
You know, when you look at matters of land governance, you know, Kenya's land sector is not one that has not gone free from issues of struggle with opacity, fraud, and double titling. How has digitization genuinely fixed this, or has it just made the system look more clean?
So the fact that we need to be able to address is that initially most of the information management was done in an analog manner. And that is not necessarily restricted to land. It was in everything, even in financial information and so on and so forth. So before, even if you had a bank account, you found that you could only withdraw money from your specific branch. You could not go to another branch and withdraw money. But the aspect of digitization has ensured that data can be shared across the branches. And therefore, if you have a bank, you bank with KCB, you can withdraw in Nairobi, you can withdraw in Kisumu, you can withdraw anywhere. So it's more or less like branchless. So that is the aspect that comes in even when you look at the land records. Initially, we had few land records. It was easy to be able to manage them using paper records. But over time, of course, these records have increased, and therefore managing such kind of data using analog means becomes a very difficult problem. That is why you would then end up with issues like double allocation, or you have less transparency, or you have missing records and so on and so forth, just because the way the data is actually being managed is not in a way that the person who is looking at the issues
Yeah.
is having the whole picture. But in a digital environment, the data storage is different. And you can look at a lot more data. You can be able to have a historical view. You can be able to predict in terms of what is going to happen in the future and so on and so forth. So it's a much easier way of handling and being able to report back on what data is there, what information somebody can be able to get there. So where we are currently, we have, I would say, attempts towards digitization. There is work that has been done within Nairobi.
Yes.
It's not complete, but at least we have data that is sitting within a digital platform. We are still having certain challenges in terms of how fast you can be able to do the searches and so on and so forth, and maybe having access to seeing the data, because that kind of information is still looked at as a securitized information. But overall, if we move further into this direction, which we should, then it can be a lot more easier to be able to handle such kind of data.
Yeah,
yes,
very important. And you know, surveyors are central to matters of land integrity. Yeah. But then again, at a practical level, boundary conflicts remain, they remain common. From where you stand, where is the weak link there? Is it a failure of enforcement? Is it a failure of tech? Or it's a matter of professional standards?
So let me clarify here that we have two types of boundaries. We have what we call the general boundaries, which you'll find in most of the rural areas. And these are basically boundaries that maybe are planted, so you put maybe sisal or euphorbia, and you put a fence, and you've agreed with your neighbor that this is the boundary. And of course that is recorded in one way or another through certain technology that was used to be able to pick up on that kind of information. Then we have what we call the fixed boundary, which is established mathematically using coordinates, and you have beacons which are coordinated and put on the ground. So when you have conflicts, especially on the general boundary areas, because those kind of boundaries, it is easy to move them. Somebody can simply bring down the fence, and therefore then you start having a challenge in terms of deciding on where the exact position of the boundary was. In the case of the fixed boundary, whether you remove the beacons or not, the surveyor will still be able to accurately determine the position of that boundary to millimeter accuracy. The conflicts that then come as a result of boundary issues, mainly because where you have people have not agreed really on where the boundary should be within, say, the general boundary areas, or there has been some encroachment over the years, and then somebody discovers that my property has been encroached on, so that there is conflict, or where you find, and in most cases people don't maintain their boundaries, and so those result into conflicts.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know, there are issues that as a country we deal with, and some of them include historical land injustices, and also matters to do with informal settlement, especially when it comes to the urban areas. But how can geospatial tools realistically solve this? Or is it a case where we are expecting tech to solve something that is deeply political?
Well, first, if we start off with the historical land injustice, one of the critical issues would be to determine how far back should you be able to go. Technology, when we look at, we have an existing technology that is called remote sensing, which makes use of satellite imageries. And these satellite imageries can be used to adjudicate on certain conflicts, or to be able to establish whether a community has been settled on a given area, and so on and so forth. By doing analysis on these data sets, we can be able to make certain deductions. But you find that technology is only dating back up to 1970. So beyond 1970s, then it becomes a bit difficult because you may not have that kind of information. But if there are issues, say from the 70s coming back to the current year, then it can be possible for us to be able to use that kind of technology to mitigate or to adjudicate on cases. So if you then look at the other aspects of the historical land injustice, maybe dating back to the 1900s and so on, then you'd have to rely on history and the tales or stories that you get from people where they have been told or whether there is existing certain documentation and so on and so forth, so that you can try to do some level of investigation. So that you'd have to use a combination of factors to see how to adjudicate on the same.
Let's look at geospatial revolution. You know, satellite mapping, digital systems. They have been positioned as game changers. But I would want to know from you, how deeply are they actually embedded in Kenya's planning and valuation systems today?
I would say we are at par with the technology. We are increasingly using the technology, and if you look at surveying, it is a profession that has evolved, and it's a profession that is really driven by technology. Because if you can imagine, when mapping started, we were using ropes.
Yeah.
And if you look at the ancient Egyptian civilization, they were using ropes, and we then moved to chains. We then moved to other forms of equipment to be able to undertake measurement. And now we are using what we call total stations. We are using what we call a GNSS, or what people call GPS equipment. We are using what we call smart stations to be able to do that. So we are really a tech-driven profession, and providing data in the latest, using the latest equipment. So this, of course, is serving to help, especially in generating the required data within a very short duration. For example, if there is flooding, which has occurred in Nairobi, using satellite images, it's possible to be able to get that information. Within one day, we can be able to determine the communities that are affected. We can be able to use that information to then look at the effect on property values and so on and so forth. So that is there.
And when you look at counties, there's they are gravitating towards GIS-based property valuation. From where we stand, do you think we have data integrity and capacity to support this shift without bringing about disputes and resistance?
So when we say GIS-based property valuation, what we are essentially saying is that we must have the underlying land records. And these land records are then stored within what we call a land information management system, which is closely related or linked to the GIS, or the geospatial information systems. So essentially, that would be that we are having the digital records within that system. So you would note that previously, when they were doing, say, valuation for rating, they're mainly using spreadsheets, so like Excel, and to be able to store the information. So you're able to store the property number, and you're able to put in the value. But now, when you're talking about GIS-driven, then it means that you have an underlying digital database, and you can then be able to feed in the valuation information. So it's helps in terms of the visualization and the presentation of the information. It makes it much easier for the counties to be able to use that for making decisions. It's very easy for them to be able to see who has not paid their rates, because that has been reduced to visual aspects. And you cannot then have a combination of other technologies, including integrating this with billing systems, You can integrate it with communication systems so that you can easily send out short message services or send out emails through this system. So the integration of what we call land information management system, bringing forth into the evaluation, would help to be able to drive the property markets and improve the way the data is being managed at the counties.
Mm-hmm. Yes. You know, at the global level, there's a discourse that is gravitating towards blockchain land registries. As a country, are we anywhere near that level, or are we struggling with more foundational issues?
First of all, the way blockchain technology works is that you have a series of servers mm-hmm. that are used to store the information. So the information is not just sitting in one server. Mm-hmm. So that if somebody accesses that server, yeah. they can be able to maybe change a given property and say if it was owned by myself, they change so that it's now owned by Mark Migwi. Mm-hmm. Because they have access to that particular server.
Yes.
In the blockchain technology, in simple terms, is that you have a series, could be hundreds of servers. So it would mean that if you want to make a change here, then you also have to make changes to all those other servers, which sometimes now becomes mm-hmm. difficult because the other servers are maybe in very secure locations which you cannot be able to access. So mm-hmm. in that way, then the information becomes more secure. Mm-hmm. And I say more secure because all these things are created by human beings, and we have ways of still being able to penetrate and mm-hmm. be able to change whatever data is there. But at least for the simplistic aspects of it is that through the blockchain technology, it may be possible to enforce certain security measures. Mm-hmm. So as Kenya, we are yet to get onto that, maybe because of the kind of expenditure that is required to institute the blockchain technology. Mm-hmm. A good country that has done this, especially on matters related to land, is Estonia. They have really been able to make use of blockchain technology. But of course, Estonia is a smaller country.
Yes.
So it's much easier for them to be able to do that. So this is something that is still under discussion. It has been mainstreamed in a number of policy documents, and hopefully with time, then this is a technology that can be brought on board.
Mm-hmm. Who controls geospatial data in Kenya? Is it the state, private firms, or fragmented institutions? And actually, if there is fragmentation, does it pose a risk?
Well, the geospatial data is provided by a number of actors or stakeholders. Mm-hmm. But the primary base information, because all the data needs to be sitting on a given base. Mm-hmm. So that base is to be provided by Survey of Kenya, mm-hmm. which is the government's department that has been mandated to undertake the mapping of the country. Yes. So they are the ones who provide the base in terms of the boundaries, in terms of the coordinate information, then they also provide the land parcels. Then the other entities or other actors or other stakeholders can then be able to build upon these data that is there. Mm-hmm. But that would work. That is the ideal way for it to be able to work. But we have a big problem because we are not doing data sharing. Mm-hmm. So we tend to have data silos. So every organization is keeping their own data and leading to duplication of data sets and wastage of resources. And therefore, it also delays decision making because you don't know what this other entity has. And maybe the data that you have from another entity is old, it is not updated. And therefore, if you're using that to make a decision, then it becomes a problem. To mitigate on this, there have been proposals for us to be able to develop what we call the National Spatial Data Infrastructure. And the National Spatial Data Infrastructure would be an environment that facilitates the sharing of data across different stakeholders and ensuring that the data is available to the public and other stakeholders at a price that is reasonable, and also ensuring that we give due credit to the people who have generated the given data sets. This is an issue that has been discussed in this country for over 20 years. We have still not gotten to the level where it has been implemented. But I chaired a task force in the year 2021 on the survey issues amendment of the laws and the policies. And one of the things that we did was to be able to mainstream the issue of national spatial data infrastructure within the Survey Act. So if that becomes a bill and it is passed to revise or to review the existing Survey Act, then we will have been able to institutionalize the national spatial data infrastructure, and we will be able to provide an infrastructure that would facilitate the sharing of data and information across different platforms and for different stakeholders that would be able to mitigate some of the challenges that we are seeing currently.
Let's look at real estate market realities and mortgage penetration within the country. It's very, very low. And from your perspective, what is the biggest constraint to real estate growth? Is it matters to do with land systems? Is it financing? Or it's matters that pertain to planning inefficiencies?
Right, so within ISK we have specific membership that are dealing with matters on real estate. And of course you're right in terms of saying that we have limited mortgages. I think one of the biggest challenges that we have is that there is little information or people are not aware, because currently we also have the Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company which has come on board, and most of the mortgages are then available at maybe around 9.5%, so different from the other commercial interests. And I think the last I heard of it is that there is the mortgage sector is growing, of course not as much as we would expect it, but at least with the Kenya Mortgage Refinance, it is helping to stabilize that particular aspect, and it is making it to be able to grow. And yeah, I think if we can be able to sustain that and inform the public more about this, especially the younger people, so that we can encourage them to use this as a means of investing for the future, then it can help be able to drive this. I think the affordable housing initiative would also help quite a bit in being able to drive on the numbers of those who can take up mortgages.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you look at when you look at the surveying profession, it sits at the heart of what we are talking about. As an institution, what reforms are you pushing internally to restore, maybe even trust and modernize the profession?
Yeah. One of the things that we are doing is looking at the aspect of policies. So we are constantly working with different stakeholders so that we can be able to have in place appropriate policies. We have developed a draft survey and mapping policy that could help to be able to drive discussions on that particular area. We are also in the process of coming up with an evaluation policy that could also be able to help to be able to mainstream certain issues that within the real estate sector. We are also then looking at aspects of the legislations and seeing what legislations need to be amended or included to help. The other aspect is on training and capacity development for our members. And then finally, we are also working as closely as we can with the institutions of higher learning to be able to influence in terms of the curriculum that is being offered, because that is really the base of instituting changes so that those come in with people who are getting into the profession. Yes.
You said that you are convening a Geospatial and Real Estate Conference.
Yes.
What is the central problem that you're trying to confront?
Well, this conference is not something that is new. It's something that we have been doing. Previously, we have been calling it the pre-AGM conference. And this year, we will be celebrating our 57th AGM. So we are 57 years. We typically have this conference so that it brings together our members and to be able to discuss the current issues, to be able to identify the challenges, and to be able to find solutions or be able to adjudicate on the areas that can potentially improve the way we are doing our work. Yes.
Indeed. Asante sana, Mr. Nyandimo. That was our time.
Yeah.
Mr. Nyandimo is the president of the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya and has been talking to us about how we can shape the future of Kenya's real estate and geospatial landscape.